Okay. What does the term fasting mean to Christians? In the article titled Fasting, it explains that fasting is withholding food and or drink from your body in order to become closer to God. And in doing this, you deny yourself and mortify your flesh. Mortify means death. So in other words, you're spending less concentration on your body and more concentration on your spirit. Throughout the Bible and in the lives of many Christians today, you can find many examples of fasting, and it has become a very important part of the Christian lifestyle. And based on my research, I will present information to you to better familiarize you with different types of fasting. And through my research, I found that there are three major types of fasting. And those three types are absolute fasting, normal fasting, and partial fasting. Okay, so the first is absolute fast. This means, and it's also called a dry fast, this means that you abstain from food and water for a certain period of time. Most of the time, this is done for a period of 3 days because you can't live that long without water. But absolute fast, you don't eat any food, you don't drink any water. There are two types of absolute fasting. There's rigid and there's soft. Rigid absolute fasting, you don't eat food, you don't drink water, and you don't allow your body to come in contact with water. In other words, you don't bathe or swim or take showers or anything like that. That's rigid absolute fasting. Soft absolute fasting is you don't eat food, you don't drink water, but you can bathe and come with external contact of water. Okay? And a good example of this is found in Acts chapter 9, verses 8 and 9. And it said, "And Saul rose from the earth, and when his eyes were opened, he saw no man. But they led him by the hand and brought him into Damascus. And he was 3 days without sight, and neither did eat nor drink." So that's a biblical example of absolute fast. Another major type of fasting is normal fasting. And in normal fasting, you abstain from food, but you drink water. And this is often done for longer periods of time because you can live longer without food than you can for water. And as long as you're abstaining from food but drinking water, you can fast for a longer period of time. And a biblical example of this is found in Luke 4:2, and Jesus set this example. And it said, "Being 40 days tempted of the devil in the wilderness, and in those days he did eat nothing, and after those days he was hungry." So that's a good type of, or a good example for normal fasting. The final type of fasting is partial fasting, and this is often referred to as Daniel fasting. And what you do when you partial fast is certain foods are abstained from, and you can drink water. So, and in this type of fast, it's not the amount. You can have as little or as much of food as you want. It's what makes it a fast is the exclusion of certain types of foods. And the biblical example for this is in Daniel chapter 1, verse 8 and verse 12. Verse 8 says, "But Daniel purposed in his heart that he would not defile himself with the portion of the king's meat, nor with the wine from which he drank. Therefore he requested of the prince of the eunuchs that he might not defile himself." And verse 9 says, "Prove thy servants, I beseech thee, 10 days, and let them give us pulse to eat and water to drink." Pulse were vegetables. So in this fast, Daniel abstained from meat because he didn't want to defile himself with the king's meat, but he did eat vegetables, so he only excluded certain types of food. And so you can see the three major types of fasting. There's three major types, and they are backed up by Scripture. And all these are important and good disciplines of fasting to go by. And as the article said, once again, they ultimately bring us closer to God because through denying ourselves, we become more sensitive to Him. And learn something about fasting.